Well, good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you, Claire. That was amazing. It's really going to be hard to wrap a sermon around it. Thank you all for coming out today, for being here on this beautiful Alaskan Sunday. Thanks for being here. We really appreciate it. And welcome to all the people watching on YouTube as well. Maybe someday you can find it to make it here to join us. We're a lot of things, and one of them is friendly. So, I usually like to start my talks with a story, and today I'm going to talk about a guy by the name of Abram and his wife Sarai. Later on, God told them to change their names, and they became Abraham and Sarah. But at this point in the life, they were known as Abram and Sarai. One day, God told Abram that he was to pack up and move. Now, Abram was a guy that lived in close contact with the divine. Now, today we, in our movement, think about being in close contact with the indwelling divine, with the God that lives within each and every one of us. But it doesn't really make any difference. Abram was in close contact with that divine spirit, and the divine spirit instructed Abram to move. So he got the inspiration. He went home and he told Sarai, "God told me to move." And she said, "What? We worked really hard at building our life here, and we've got a home, and we've got, servants, and we've got a lot of good things." He said, "Well, God told me to move." Well, where are we supposed to move? I don't know. He didn't tell me that. Well, when are we supposed to move? Now. Wait a minute. What am I supposed to pack? Everything. Wait, this isn't adding up. And this is kind of a good little story, because what's behind this is that with the divine inspiration, Abram didn't put demands or requests on God. He didn't say, "When am I supposed to leave? What am I supposed to take with me?" He didn't answer all of those questions that any wife would naturally have. He just followed what his instinct told him to do, what his inner inspiration told him what to do. You see, if he were brave, he had that courage. He was brave. He was brave enough to step into that and follow that intuition. Just like Claire was brave enough to stand up and sing a solo for the first time. It's the same thing. So today, my 3 points. I'm going to talk about what is fear. Number 2, our negative thoughts create fear. And number 3, how do we overcome fear? Ernest Holmes tells us, "But what is fear? Nothing more nor less than the negative use of faith misplaced, a belief in 2 powers instead of 1, a belief that there can be a power opposed to God, whose influence and ability may bring us evil." And that uncovers this whole concept of duality. And that is this idea of a heaven and a hell, of a God and Satan, of something positive in the world and something negative in the world that opposes it. And many of the world's traditions that we all honor embrace this idea. But I never was really comfortable with that idea. I guess somewhere along the line, I got it in my head that this infinite being, this thing that created all that is, was indeed perfect in every way. And I guess one way of saying it is God doesn't make junk. That infinite presence created all of everything. So did this infinite presence create something to oppose it? That doesn't make much sense. Did it, if it made this other thing, it would have to be greater than itself, equal to itself or less than itself. Well, why would this creative power of the universe, this thing that made all of everything, create something that was greater than itself? That makes no sense. Why would it create something equal to itself? So it would be in constant battle for supremacy between good and evil. To me, that doesn't make any sense either. And neither does this concept that this creative power that created all of everything makes something that's inferior to itself. No, to me, the thing that makes sense is not a duality, a God and a Satan, but rather that a God that has created everything perfect in its own way, and it has given each and every one of us free choice. It has given each and every one of us the freedom to choose bondage over freedom. It has given us the freedom to choose lack and limitation over prosperity. It has given us freedom to embrace misery instead of joy. And sometimes we do that. Sometimes we make choices which make our lives appear to be less than wonderful and perfect in every way. But that doesn't make any difference because those lives are absolutely perfect in every way. They're just waiting for us to explore them. They're waiting for us to step forward in that courage and be not afraid. I think I got off on a quote. Wasn't part of my talk. Ernest Holmes, in the Science of Mind textbook, says, fear is a belief in limitation, a denial that the divine is the center and the source of all good. The divine is the center and the source of all good. Number 2, point 2, our negative thoughts create fear. Now this is a long quote, but it says so much, and it says it so well. It comes from a new Design for Living. Ernest Holmes wrote this in 1959, so it wasn't too long before he made his transition. We can see that any fear of what tomorrow may bring rests largely in what we fear today. In other words, since our thought is creative, since the mold of our experience, how could tomorrow hold anything that would be fearful to us? The only possible way for the future to become a thing to be feared is if we are creating that condition in our thinking today. The unexpected never happens, for in some way or other we can find the basis for it in the pattern of our thinking. Actually, we have expected it to happen. We rudely discover that the fearful experiences which we may be encountering could only have been born out of the turmoil and chaos of our morbidity of thought. What would keep someone from standing up and singing their first solo at the Alaska Center for Spiritual Living? That's that fear. And it is a fear based in something that isn't God's truth. But it's real. Don't make any mistake about that. That fear is absolutely real. Our negative thoughts can hold us in prison. And until we can step forward and say, what could I do today if I were brave? It holds us in that prison. You're too old for that job. You don't have the right background. You don't have the right education. You're too inexperienced. You're not qualified. You can't do that. You can't write a book. You don't have a PhD in some great field. But when we step forward, when we listen to the still small voice and we can do any of that, then we can. We absolutely can write books. We can get up in front of this center and sing. We can do miraculous things. And when we do that, the divine current is working with us and not against us. That divine current is helping us along the way. An example of that, and I'll return to the Christian Bible, Jesus. In that last week before he was crucified, he was going all around Galilee and he's healing people and doing miracles and all kinds of things. And he and the disciples got in a boat and went out in the Sea of Galilee. And a storm came up and everybody's worried. And Jesus gets out of the boat and starts walking across the water. Well, the disciples are going, whoa. And he says, join me, come on. Well, Simon Peter says, can we do that, boss? He says, sure, you can do it. So he stepped out of the boat, and Simon Peter actually walked a little ways before he started sinking. And what a great metaphor for life. We can do that when we believe. The other disciples all stayed in a boat. They didn't have the courage to get up on this stage and sing. They had a belief that held them back that they could not do it. And Simon Peter, once he got out there and looked around, he didn't believe he could do it either, and he started to sing. But for a while he did walk. And it is our belief that holds us back. What would I do today if I were brave? Point number 3, how to overcome this fear that presents itself to us. I had to make a note in the prelude songs. Jenny, you are amazing. Yes. I have the power to change my life. I am the thinker that thinks the thought. I am the one that is thinking those negative thoughts. I am the one that is growing that forest that's inhibiting me from being all that I can today. And I have the power to change my life. And this is how we overcome that fear, as we change our thinking. It's our motto around here. Change your thinking, change your life. Ernest Holmes in Living the Science of Mind. The quickest and most effective method to get rid of fear is to get quiet and lift up the whole thought in confidence and faith to something bigger than we are. It is like going from a cold, dark room into the sunshine and just sitting there, letting the rays of the sun penetrate the whole being with warmth and color until the darkness and dampness are gone. So it is with the life of prayer and faith, of affirmative meditation, and of communion with that divine spirit which is closer to us than our very breath. We have all been made in the image and likeness of God. And as that infinite presence is giving expression to itself, the only way that it can is through and as us. Our life is God's life. God's life is our life, expressing through us. It is how that infinite presence experiences. And if we can accept that this infinite presence, and I did this a few weeks ago, is both immanent and transcendent, it is perfect in every way, it hasn't made you faulty. You're not a reject on the giant production line of God making life. God didn't make mistakes. You're not a mistake. You're given free choice to choose things that are less than wonderful, but you are inherently perfect in every way. Know this. So if you are perfect, you have nothing to fear. There's nothing to be afraid of. Nothing. Not even that giant bear. We can make bad choices. We're a little ahead in time. A few weeks ago, you see in the paper, this guy was out at Katmai, my favorite haunt. I love to go fishing out there. And this guy walked out in the middle of the pool below the falls to take a selfie. And these are bad boys. These are big guys. They are the ones that have defeated all the other bears to have the prime fishing spots. And he walked out in the middle of them. That is a candidate, absolutely, for the Darwin Award. He could be removed from the gene pool. And as such, as that perfect being, you have been given everything you need to succeed in all that you want to do today. In the thing that you want today, if you are brave. You have already been given everything you need. We are brave. We sometimes have a compelling need to know. Like Sarai needing to know when do we leave. Where are we going? What's the climate like? What should I pack? Swimming suits and stuff. Are we going to the beach? Do I pack a parka? Are we going to the mountains? Is it going to be cold? We have a need to know what things are along the way. And we can let that go because that isn't for us to determine. The divine current is working with us to produce that. We don't have to do all of everything. We can allow that divine current to help us, to guide us along the way. We have to get off dead center and take that first step and continue to take this step. And it will lead us where we need to be. One last story, and this is another story from the Hebrew Scriptures. Joshua, he was the leader of the Hebrew people after Moses. And once again, all the Hebrews are moving into to Canaan, and God told Joshua to lead the Hebrews into the Promised Land. And they had the Ark of the Covenant. They had these priests carrying the Ark of the Covenant. And the Ark of the Covenant was the Ten Commandments, stones all in this golden box. And so he had the priests all carrying the Ark of the Covenant. And they said, how are we going to cross the Jordan River with this thing? And he says, just go out there and wade in and I'll take care of it. So he tells the priest, start crossing the river. And they're saying, whoa. Now they're expecting something like, they just had Moses come through and he crossed the Red Sea. He pulled up his staff and the water's pointed. And they're thinking something like this is going to happen. So they're out there carrying this thing and they're getting deeper and deeper and the water isn't parting anywhere. But what happened is the water stopped coming down from upstream. The water where they were continued to flow down into the Dead Sea. So all this water was backing up way above them, and it's already at flood stages. But the whole riverbed dried up, and they stood in the middle, and all of the Hebrews walked on across. And then the priests with the Ark of the Covenant walked on across, and the waters took up and came again. You see, they didn't have to know every step of the way. They trusted, they had faith that this would unfold for their benefit. They had that inner knowing. I'm going to leave you with one last quote, kind of another long one. Seems like that's all I did today. This comes from an awesome book. It's called Effective Prayer. Our Prac 1 students are reading it now. Well, at least one of them is.
One.
Bless our Prac 1 students. They are awesome. Fear and faith are identical in that the energy used in the one is the same energy that is used in the other. Since there is but one final energy in the universe, and this final energy is the energy of thought. Fear is a positive acceptance that you shall experience that which you dislike. Faith is a positive acceptance that you shall experience that which you do like. But they are identical in this mental action. The only difference is in the direction. And so we get to make that choice. We get to make the choice whether we're going to accept that which is an affirmative, that which is good for us, that which we desire and we want, or whether we're going to accept the things of which we are afraid. So my takeaway today, know that you are a perfect child of God, just as you are. And there can be nothing opposed to you other than your own thought. And you have the power to change your thought. You can change your thinking. And so with that idea in mind, I ask my colleagues, the practitioners, to join me in prayer and simply know that there is indeed a divine power in the universe. There is an infinite presence That infinite presence, that divine creative power has made all that is, everything in the entire cosmos. And so therefore it certainly must have within its power the ability to heal, to cure anything which is in opposition to it, which appears in opposition to it, for there is nothing in opposition. There are only decisions which produce effects that are not as pleasurable. So I speak my word now for anyone who is experiencing separation. Separation from their fellow man or separation from God. We just simply know that that infinite presence, that power, if nothing else, is a power of love. And that love, God's love, is greater than anything. It is greater than any material thing. And it is the essence of who we are. So any disagreements, whether they be at work or in the family or even romantic relationships, are all based on God's love. And when we get our bloated nothingness out of the way, we allow our egos to fall aside, we can allow the love of God to move and flow. And I also speak my word for those who are experiencing lack and limitation, when there is more month than there is paycheck. We just simply know that we live in an abundant universe. And when we open ourselves up, we know that the storehouse of heaven pours out a blessing to each and every one of us. And lastly, I speak my word for those who are experiencing health challenges, knowing that our lives are perfect exactly as they are. That behind the appearance of dis-ease, behind the appearance of brokenness, there is a blueprint that is perfect. There is a pattern of perfection, and it is that pattern that we embrace and accept. So we just give thanks. We give thanks for this magnificent thing that we call life. We give thanks for our awareness of the power and the presence of God. And we just get ourselves out of the way. We let it go. We let it be. And so it is.
And so it is.